Welcome to this segment on how Splunk consumes data. We also want to answer the question, what kind of data can Splunk consume? Well, the answer is, the sky is really the limit. Some of the more obscure types of unstructured data might require some human intervention, but once you teach Splunk how to deal with that data, the next time it encounters it, it is very easy to handle it, and it knows exactly how to do so. So Splunk can consume all of the regular types of data that you would expect, and look at that Internet of Things. So we can consume data from toasters and things like that, but more importantly, self-driving cars, sensors on our bodies like fitness sensors, and all kinds of things. Of course, Splunk can consume the regular logs, configurations, scripts, tickets, alerts, virtual and physical servers, communications devices, almost anything you can throw at it. And how do we get data there? Well, we can upload files, we can monitor files, we can forward syslog data directly to a Splunk indexer or search head, we can use SNMP traps, we can use scripted inputs from APIs. Perhaps the most important way that Splunk gets data is through universal and heavy forwarders. And we'll talk about universal and heavy forwarders and install and configure them in the next two segments. But for now, let's go through uploading and monitoring. Here are our three options. We have upload, monitor, and forward. And uploading is pretty straightforward. We just upload a document. In the demo, we'll do a CSV document. Monitoring is equally as simple. We just click on monitor. The forward option allows us to see which forwarders are calling home to our Splunk indexer or search head. It also allows us to set up a Splunk distribution server. And we can also manage forwarders remotely through this forwarding panel. But that comes later in the course. We'll talk more about setting up a distributed environment. Any type of data that comes in gets assigned some default metadata by Splunk unless you specify otherwise. The metadata is source, host, source type, and index. Index defaults to default. Source type, Splunk attempts to automatically determine the source type, whether it's CSV or syslog or something like that. Host defaults to the machine name that Splunk detects. And source defaults the path of the input file. So let's see how uploading and monitoring works in Splunk. Back on our Splunk search head, I'm going to first download the homeworkdata.csv file. And back in Splunk, I'm going to go to Settings, Add Data, and first of all, I'm going to upload, select a file, and there's our homeworkdataset.csv. It should upload pretty quickly. Next, set the source type, and Splunk will automatically determine that it is a CSV. If the source type is unclear to Splunk, you can manually set it here. Make sure everything is good. This is a CSV that I created, so it's pretty clean. Now we're going to choose Input Settings. The host field value, I defaulted to my machine name, but let's manually define a host name, and we'll call it homework. And index defaults to default, and that's fine. We'll review everything and click Done. And we'll start searching, and let's make sure that our homework data was uploaded and is searchable. So here Splunk generated a search for us. Source equals that file name, host equals homework, and source type equals CSV. You don't actually need all that. You just need one of them to bring up our homework data. And here is the homework data with the fields that Splunk has automatically detected. And it lists them here as well as interesting fields. And since it's a CSV file, the fields are very clear because, as we know, a field is a key value pair. So key value, host equals homeward. That's a key value pair. And Splunk did this in smart mode. We'll talk about modes a little bit later. And choose monitor. Now we need to tell Splunk what we are intending to monitor. Let's choose files and directories. And we'll browse, and as you can see, we can actually browse the file system. So let's browse down in Windows. Diagnostics might have a lot of data. And we'll monitor that entire directory, Windows Diagnostics Index. And now it's going to ask us for the same source information that we did when we uploaded a file. So host field value, let's just call it Windows. And the index is fine how it is. We'll review the data, submit it, and then start searching. And we have 24 events. This is a brand new virtual machine, so it hasn't been alive long enough to collect a ton of events. But we've just monitored this path. We've assigned it a particular host name, so all we need to do is do host equals Windows, and it will bring up the same data. And again, we're in smart mode, so Splunk is trying to detect all of the fields that might be useful to us. And remember, next up we're going to talk about forwarders, so stay tuned for that. I look forward to seeing you then.